At first glance, Steam's Disk Manager may seem very simple, but trust me, there are a bunch of hidden features that will make the use of Steam and your emulated Atari system much, much easier. As you can see, Steam's Disk Manager is a normal window that can be moved, resized, or even closed and opened as needed. Now for my setup, I leave the Settings and Disk Manager windows off to the right of the emulator window. It allows me to access functions without the need to navigate much. Before we get into the panel's actual use, let's take a look at the group of icons immediately above it. And as you can see here, this drop-down list shows all the drives that I have on the host system. In fact, if I go ahead and look at the host system, and you'll see that I have the same exact drives over here as right here. And if I drill down into the retro drive in the Atari folder, you'll see that I can click over on the manager over on the left and do the same thing and open up 16-bit there. You'll see they match the listing on the right. Starting on the left, the two arrows control the direction of any navigation that you have made. Since it remembers that I was in the Atari folder, clicking on the left arrow turns me to that folder. Then clicking forward puts me back in the 16-bit folder. The arrow goes gray because there is no forward history. But if you navigate further back, you can then return forward almost indefinitely. The next icon, a little house, is return to the home directory. This can be any directory that you want it to be. It provides an easy way to find your way back from a deep dive into the directory structure. For example, if I click on Downloads, and then Page 6, and then Mags, and then ST News, and finally the STN21 directory, I can return to the home directory by simply clicking on the home icon. The next icon is to set the current view as your home directory. This was set during the initial setup of Steam, but if you didn't do it or want to change the home directory, here's your chance. If you just click on it, a list of 10 available slots will be displayed. Hovering over the first one, it will display 3 choices. Use the current display directory, change to a different one, or erase. If we say change, it will immediately change to whatever this is here. So if we click on it, you'll see now that it's listed here. I could change it to where it's a different directory, but I'll do it on the next entry instead. And instead of doing a duplicate, I'll just select a different directory, for example, hard drives, click on OK. And now I have 2 listings. And I can do that for any one of the ones down here. You can remove them later on by using the erase function here. And then you're back to whatever you have left. The next icon is the gear, and you guessed it, it displays settings, about 20 of them. I'm not going to cover all of them. It would take an extraordinarily long video to cover them all. Feel free to check out the full list. They are completely explained in the help docs, and you can access them using the eye icon in the upper right-hand corner. The Mega STE uses the same CPU clock as the STE, but it can programmatically switch to 16 MHz. So basically the turbo button, which is a hack, commands the emulated Mega STE's CPU to 16 MHz. Sometimes disk access can be really slow, so this option makes Steam always fast forward when the ST is doing it. But there are some programs that continue to run while accessing the disk. If you're going to use one of them, you should turn this off. Okay, the next option, which is Read-Write Archives. Now, Read-Write Archives allows you to access disk images and archive zip files. Steam extracts them to a temporary file, then uses that like a normal disk image. But unfortunately, re-archiving a temporary file can be difficult depending upon the archive type. Besides, modifying an archive is questionable. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Because of this, by default, all disk images and archives are treated read-only, so they can't be changed. So if you turn on this option, you can make STeem allow writes to the temporary file, but any changes will be lost when the temporary file is deleted, i.e. the disk is ejected. Now, some ST programs require the disk to be read-write, so this option will allow you to run them without having to extract them. For example, we look here on these zip files, and we put them here, and then we open up the A drive, you'll see that there's information in here which we can delete, change, and all that, but as soon as we eject the disk, those changes will be lost. Now the next option is a Connect Drive B. Now by default, STeem emulates an ST with only one internal floppy drive, but it can also emulate an external drive, and it can be very useful. Unfortunately, a lot of STs only had one drive, and some programs will get confused when there are options for two. So if we go up here and we click on it, it turns it off, or you can use the option here in the list and toggle it back and forth. The next option is a little bit of a convenience, but if you come down here and it says Run Program on TOS Files. Now, it may not mean what you think it means, but let's go ahead and take a look. Now, if I close down STeem, and I go to a drive that has a program file, PRG file, or TOS file, if I click on it, you'll see that it initializes STeem. It starts it up, just like if you click on a doc format in Word, it brings up Word. Well, and that might be handy, but you have to remember, all it does is start it. It does not run the program that you clicked on. It's just telling you that STeem needs to be launched. Now I'm going to demonstrate the effects of several options, all concerning inserting disks, running programs, and ejecting disks. First is a double-click action. So I'm going to go down here, all the way down here, double-click action, and you'll see it says none. What that means is if I double-click here, nothing happens. If I go back to that option, and I change this to Insert in Drive A, and I double-click on it, it inserts it in Drive A. Nothing else happens. Then, if I change it one more time and say Insert, Reset, and Run, if I double-click on a file in there, it runs it as if you just booted your ST with a disk inside of it. And as you can see, it goes through the entire boot process, reads what's in the disk drive, and boots to that disk. Now for the next one, actually, I'm going to go back up the list, and I'm going to check the eject disk when quit. And what that means is it'll eject any disks that are in the drives when you quit STeem. Then the next time you shut down and restart STeem, there won't be a disk in Drive A. So if we put one up here, and we shut down STeem, the next time we launch it, we'll see there's no disk in Drive A. That'll allow you to have a clean boot without booting to the last program you had in there. Now the next item is Close Disk Manager after Insert, Reset, and Run. That's being used in conjunction with the double-click action down here, Insert, Reset, and Run. If we double-click on it, it'll insert it here. It will close the Disk Manager and restart the system. So the Disk Manager won't be showing when it reboots. So let's try it. Now you'll notice that if we go up here, this icon is not depressed because the Disk Manager is not there. It's been closed. Now there's a few other options that I very rarely concern myself with, like past the MFM emulation, Ghosted. I would recommend that you use the information again up in the file to understand what's going on with those and use them. I'm going to talk about these four, which affect this particular window here and how the data is displayed. Just like in Explorer, you can change the size of things. I say small, we get a better or smaller view, or a view where you can have more icons. I prefer large. Icon spacing, again, smaller spacing, more stuff. I prefer normal. And you can sort by date or name. I just usually leave it on name. The next icon on the disk manager is a magnifying glass over a folder. Clicking on it brings up yet another menu. Now I'm going to skip past the first one and go down to Open Current Folder in Explorer. It does exactly what it says. If you want to see the actual files, click on it, and up pops File Explorer, and it's open to that directory. So now if you want to do some actions like copy, extract archives, etc., you can do them easily here. Once you're done, all you have to do is refresh the pane to see any changes. Now next, we're going to skip down to Find in Current Folder. We click on this, whatever folder is there is open, and then we can search within that. And if I search for something there, you'll see it gives me results of all the files in that folder that match my search. Let's go back to the top of this and say Search in Disk Image Database. This feature allows you to find a particular program inside of a disk archive. Now, there are several sites that you can use. For example, there is the EXO forum, which has a listing of all the major archives. You can drill into them and try and find your item that way. And you can even download them there if you don't already have them. But the search function in Disk Manager, if you click on it, it opens up another dialog box that lets you enter a search term. For example, I'm going to type in MAD, and I'm going to hit enter and find. Because I'm looking for Marble Madness, one of my favorite games. It's in Automation 99. So now all I have to do is go to the Automation 99 disk right here. Well, to do that and make it easier to read, I'm going to click on the settings again and change my icon size to small, and there they are. So now all I got to do is scroll over until I find Automation 99. And there it is. I have several different ones, but I'm going to click on this first one. And using that other setting that I have, I'm going to double click. And you know what happens then? It inserts it into the A drive, reboots the machine. And there we have it. It rebooted it. And I can play number 2, Marble Madness. And after it unpacks, I can press any key to run. And sure enough, there it is. So if I press F1, I'm in Marble Madness. And I have control of it with my mouse, just like the menu. Now that we understand how the icons and panel work together, let's talk about the disk icons themselves. First, the floppy drive icons. They are exactly what they seem to be. You can insert a disk and it'll be read just like the 3.5-inch disks of years ago. The file can be in several different formats. The most common are ST, STX, and MSA, but even a standard zip file with a disk image in it can be read. To insert a disk, you can do it via the panel below. So I'm going to go to my hard drive directory. I'm going to drill down to where I store all my raw files in the D drive. Then I'm going to go down to Games here, and I'm going to go to Battleship. And you'll see here there's 2 different icons. One's a zip file. If you drop it in here by dragging it there, you'll see that it has an ST file. That's the same file that I've already extracted on my system here. I can do it this way as well, where I take the actual ST file and drop it there. That demonstrates you don't even have to extract it from the zip file. But I would recommend if you're going to be reading and writing to the disk that you extract it from the zip and then drop that in there. Make sure that any changes are done into the ST file. To demonstrate this, we're going to open up this extracted file and put it in there. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to open up the A drive. And it has some programs here. I want to get rid of this Domino's program. So I'm going to say File, Delete Item, and say OK. It deleted it. So let's reboot the system. And if we look at the A drive now, that was a permanent change to that disk. So make sure you want those changes to happen when you're doing operations on the disk. Now, of course, you can restore the original contents of the file by simply coming over here and deleting that file here and extracting it again and restoring it there. Now, when you read the file here, it's the restored file, which will have the files that you deleted. Now, besides the operations through the panel, you can also go to the drive and right-click on it. You can say Choose with Window File Selector. Click on that. It brings up your file selector wherever you happen to be. You can be anywhere on your systems. But in this particular case, on my D drive again, back to Games and Battleship. And here's the same two files. And I can take and drag them from here. I can drag them right there to that drive, just like I did through this interface here. The next thing I want to cover on the drives is this downward arrow here, this caret. And you'll see here, this has a history of the files that you inserted. So you don't have to go back and find it in the manager. You can just simply click on a file if it's the one you want, and it'll automatically reinsert it no matter where you're at. And then you can check on that by simply going here to the A drive. And there we are inside of that disk. If we move over to the hard drive icons, there are two types. You enable and disable them by left-clicking with your mouse. To configure them, you right-click. And as long as we're here with the ASCII file, let's take a look at that. Now, ASCII is an open source hard disk emulator for the ST computers that enables the use of SD cards as storage devices. STeem emulates it, allowing you to access files that are stored in a single file represented in an SD card. I'm going to turn off the GEMDOS. Take a look at the ASCII file. Now you can browse to one. STeem provides a couple examples of empty ones. You can create your own. You do all those things. Now, as long as it's activated and you say OK, and we reboot, you'll see that it boots to the empty ASCII drive. And once it's finished and we take a look at it, you'll see that the hard disk here is empty. And in here, we can create folders. We can copy files from anything that's in the A drive. We can do all those functions that you would. Then when you exit and save, that's going to be there. So let's try that. So let's go to the floppy drive and insert a disk. And then come back over here, open it up, and there's that Domino's program again. This time I'm going to take it, put it on the ASCII drive, say OK, and it's now copied there. Now, if I close everything, and I remove the disk from the A drive, and I reboot, it goes through the same boot process because it's accessing the same file. But now, when I go to this file, you'll see that the program has been copied there, and it's a permanent change to that file. Moving on to GEMDOS Drives. GEMDOS is an interface between STeem and a host file system. It manages the files just like a standard PC-based system, allowing you to create folders, add files, etc. Now, I have an earlier video that explains how I no longer use a boot manager to switch ST configurations. Because ST era files are so small compared to modern files in hard drive storage, you can have multiple directories, each containing a different ST boot scenario. I have several high resolution, several medium resolution, and some low resolution, each containing files for that purpose. As I mentioned in an earlier video, I talked about my hard drives. I no longer boot using a boot manager. I simply create a directory for each different type of boot I want. For example, I want to boot graphics medium, whatever I want. Here's the one we're booting to right now, which is low games. And what that does, it reads the info file there, which is a low resolution desktop. And it comes up and enables everything I want. And inside that, I have little games that run at low resolution. So that's Steam's Disk Manager. I tried to cover the most useful features, but if I skipped over one that you need, don't forget to use the eye icon in Steam's top right corner and access the extensive documentation there. With that, I hope you have fun reliving the early days of computer on your virtual Atari ST system. So, if you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and hit the reminder bell to be notified of any new videos. Additionally, you can find me on Reddit, Facebook, X, and my website. The links are in the description of this video.